Following the release of 2 films in 2005, Wes Craven would not direct another feature for 5 years. He moved into producing, overseeing remakes of The Hills Have Eyes and The Last House on the Left. He also co-wrote the sequel to The Hills Have Eyes remake with his son, Jonathan Craven. In 2006, Craven began to lament that he had not both written and directed a film since New Nightmare in 1994. He began work on a new movie that would eventually be called My Soul to Take and released in 2010. The story begins with Abel, a husband and father. He also suffers from multiple personality disorder. He discovers that one of his personalities is the notorious local serial killer, the Riverton Ripper. Abel calls his doctor for help, but it's too late. He has killed his pregnant wife. The police seemingly kill Abel, but he promises to return as a group of babies are born at the same time. These babies are known as the Riverton 7. They are main character Bug, his friends Alex, Jay, and Jerome, Jock Brandon, hot girl Brittany, and religious hot girl Penelope. Someone claiming to be the Ripper begins to kill the 7, starting with Jay. Bug is Abel's son, who the doctors managed to save in spite of his mother dying. Due to that, he is the most likely suspect. Bug's older sister, Fang, is now the school bully due to her trauma, both being raised by their aunt. The Ripper slashes his way through the kids until only Bug and Alex are left. What is revealed is that each of Abel's personalities had a unique soul, and when Abel died, each of those souls became one of the Riverton 7. However, one of the 7 got 2 souls, a normal one, and the soul of the Ripper. Alex is the unfortunate one with 2 souls, and he is the killer. Bug is forced to kill Alex, and thus the Ripper, ending the movie. A lot of times with Craven films, I'll talk about how the premise alone is effective. Movies like Nightmare on Elm Street and Red Eye instantly draw you in with simple premises that can be explained in 1 or 2 sentences. It took me 5 paragraphs to explain this movie, and there really isn't a way to simplify it down. It's not even an interesting idea. The idea of a killer in your dreams is immediately evocative and interesting for a variety of reasons. There's so much you can do with it. In My Soul to Take, there's nothing grabbing about this premise. Yeah, souls can be an interesting discussion, because what are they? Do we literally have them, or are they abstract concepts? But the movie doesn't do anything with that. It presents the concept and then moves on, hoping you'll just accept it, which is a habit of Craven's. He's not a lore-heavy guy. He gave little to no explanation of the mythos of Freddy in either the original Elm Street or New Nightmare, which I'm fine with because those movies have cool premises. I saw this complaint get thrown at Happy Death Day. Some people didn't like that that movie didn't explain how Tree ended up in a time loop. Because it's a cool premise for a movie. Is it honestly a better movie now that the sequel explained that she got stuck in a time loop due to the Asian guy building a time machine? Is Elm Street better now that we know Freddy got his powers from dream demons? Is Friday the 13th better because we know that Jason got resurrected by the Necronomicon, which turned him into a slug that resurrects whenever he enters the vaginas of his female blood relatives? No. The answer is no. But because this movie is kind of boring and its premise uninspired, that is exactly the place my brain goes. Why did the souls enter these specific kids in the same town? Why did Alex get 2? Why didn't the Ripper personality just possess an 8th person? This movie's central concept doesn't creep me out or captivate me, it just confuses me. Let's talk about the characters. My Soul to Take is bizarrely similar to Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. You have the incredibly bland lead, surrounded by a supporting cast where each character has one personality trait. And when a supporting character dies, the lead inherits their one trait. I don't really like Bug at all. There's not much to him other than being a punching bag for every other character. He's not particularly clever or charming. His dad was a serial killer, which is a cool backstory, but he doesn't remember any of that. Ultimately, it's just there to make him look like a suspect. The supporting cast doesn't fare much better. Again, they're all pretty one note. And the dialogue doesn't help matters. It's pretty awful. It's very clearly a 70-year-old man trying to write teenagers. And as someone who was a teenager at the time of this movie's release, nobody talked like this. It's all very awkward, and the younger actors have a hard time delivering some of these lines. The Ripper is not excused from this. He might be one of the lamest slashers I've ever seen. His dialogue is trying way too hard to recapture what worked with Freddy and Ghostface. He sounds like a 13-year-old playing Fortnite. And you might argue, well, it's Alex. He is a lame teenage boy, that makes sense. And sure, but that isn't scary for one, and it's inconsistent with what the movie reveals. Alex is not the Ripper. He is the vessel for the Ripper, who is his own decades-old personality. The Ripper is just an edgelord dork tweeting hashtag restore the Snyderverse in between murder sprees. The character that comes the closest to working is Fang. She actually remembers what their father did, unlike Bug, which is actually a little weird. The movie needs her to be old enough to remember that event, but young enough to still be in high school with Bug. And there is a throwaway line about her being held back 1 year, but I don't think that's enough. Regardless, turns out that your father being a serial killer and murdering your mother right in front of you would do quite the number on your psyche. I like this idea that she's holding herself back, self-sabotaging and self-destructing, because she can't process it. She can't move on. She is stuck and continually only makes it worse for herself. Emily Mead pulls it off pretty well. The issue is that there's no real payoff. Fang barely has any screen time, and she doesn't get to confront the Ripper. This could have been a cool story about these two siblings, but she gets shoved aside, and I think there's a lot of wasted potential there. Released on October 8, 2010, the movie only grossed $21.8 million against a $25 million budget, and it was eviscerated by critics. I first saw the movie when it was released on DVD in 2011, and I think I was so happy to have a new Craven film that I was a lot kinder to it. Plus, I did always like Fang, and Mead is very cute, so that probably had something to do with it as well. But 10 years later, this movie is a mess. The script doesn't quite work, with a convoluted, uninteresting premise, weak dialogue, and flat, one-dimensional characters. The resulting movie is boring, a little confusing, and an overall disappointment.